Hello, everybody. In this episode of the Beyond the Sermon podcast, we'll be learning about finding your sweet spot in serving, how construction work can serve the community, and learning to manage your time when you have lots going on. All right, well, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Today I'm sitting with Rich Lepper. You may see him driving around town and with his name advertised in bright red on his van. Rich is the owner of Lepper Construction, serving the Ames area for 35 years. That's a long time. Here at Christ Community Church, Rich is involved in a number of projects with a local nonprofit called the Wings of Refuge. So we've invited you here today. Thanks for coming in, Rich.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate being here.
So, yeah, what are some of the projects you're working on right now?
Well, I'm actually just working on one right now for the Wings of Refuge, but it's quite a large one. It's what they call their Transitional Living Center, which is soon to be opened up. And it is a 5-bedroom home that is being totally remodeled. And in fact, we gutted it down to the bare framing. But its design as we go put it back together is to create a space that women can live independently for the first time after coming out of the rescue home. And the objective there is for them to use this independence to launch themselves out into the community more, and also a place for them to receive individual continued ed in a lot of life skill type of ways and job skill type of ways, and tutoring and so forth.
Yeah. So, how long have you been working with Wings of Refuge?
About 2.5 years ago, my wife and I attended a kind of a living room meeting and heard about the organization and also about the huge need for support to help victims of sex trafficking. And it was at that point that I got involved with the organization, helping them find their first home in Ames, which is kind of titled the Rescue Home. And it needed some remodeling as well. So I was also the volunteer contractor on that project and helped coordinate the trades and so forth that needed to come in and help remodel that one.
Nice. Okay, so Wings of Refuge, there's kind of like a 2-step process, at least, kind of just basically breaking it down. So someone kind of getting rescued out of sex trafficking is first going to that rescue home. So that's a place that's already, available and women are living there.
Right.
So the transition home you're working on now, was that always in the plan? Was it something that they had already had and now we're just upgrading it? Or is this like a totally new venture?
Well, this is a new venture. It's been on the radar for a while, but obviously funds and timing of God's provision in all this is what's kind of driven all of it. It's a Christ-centered mission, and they're very engaged with following God's lead on all of this. But you're right. The rescue home is the first home that a victim would come to. And at some point, they are emotionally and physically healed and hopefully spiritually engaged enough that they can advance then to what will be the TLC. The organization actually is maybe 7 years old in total. So a lot of these steps are first steps for the Wings of Refuge as they continue to see the need, which is tremendous. The current rescue home is a 5-bedroom home also. So in the end, they'll have 10 bedrooms available once the TLC home is available, but they turn away, I've heard numbers in the neighborhood of 60 requests a year.
Oh, wow.
That they don't have enough beds for. So they're just trying to do their best to fill a need and support as many gals as they can.
Yeah. Is there an opportunity somewhere there to potentially find more space and offer more beds so not as many women can be turned away?
Well, I'm sure that's on the
Yeah,
radar. It's
one step at a time, though, right? Yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah. This is a big venture, and of course, along with opening a home, it comes the responsibility of staffing it or maintaining it, and all these
right,
things. So, it all takes some cash flow to do, as well as a great number of volunteers. So.
right. So where are we at then in the process of the remodeling of that transition home? What do you think the projected finish date is to where women can start moving in?
Well, we're relatively speaking, we're real close. We could be to the point of turning it over for furnishing in the next 45 days or something like that.
Okay,
Um, and some of that truly depends on God's provision of helpers at this
right.
point. There's quite a number of detailed tasks to finish up to kind of get it over the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. So always looking for more workers. So
Yeah.
I think the one thing I'm really interested in, so I've been interested in building things, for many years, just kind of like as a side hobby. And it's a skill that I know that I've been blessed with, but never thought necessarily how could I use that to impact our community and to impact God's kingdom. So when did you first learn that your skills as a carpenter, I mean, 35 years, clearly you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills. When did you first learn that you could take that skill to serve the church and serve the community?
Well, I think for me, and maybe because of the skill or the occupation that I was in, it happened fairly early on in life.
Okay.
Really, I pretty much all of my adult life, I've known that there were ways that I could contribute around the physical church building, especially in repairs and maintenance and that kind of thing. So I've done a lot of that over the years. But I think the outreach side of it, for me, happened more as we got more involved in Christ Community Church. One of the first uh, more outreach related things was our uh, small group, a couples Bible study group, took on a bathroom remodeling project, for example,
Oh,
and helped some folks out with that. And it was a very rewarding thing, not only as our group connected around that, but also in the end, the folks that we helped out with that came to know Christ and started attending our small group.
wow.
So lifelong friendships were built out of that. So that was that was kind of, I guess, a big first step, if you will, in the outreach side of serving more so for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought, right? I'm going to go remodel a bathroom and that's going to turn into a friendship that you said lifelong. But also like, helping bring the gospel to somebody in really a physical way, right? I mean, I think one of the, yeah, we're saved by grace. We're not saved by our works, but our works are an extension of our faith. And when people see that, there's just something about that can kind of like lights a spark in people, right? To want to learn more, like what makes you so, thoughtful and selfless in your service. So that's a cool story. I like
Hmm.
that. Now I've remodeled, I've done some remodeling projects around my house, and there's just so much work involved and you feel like there's never enough time to get anything done. And here you are running a business that's remodeling houses all over town, but then on top of that, because everything you do to serve the church is kind of really on top of what you're already doing throughout the week. I think that could, for me, I know I get burnt out when I'm done working for the day and think, "Oh, I got to go home and now I got to do stuff around the house." There's a lot of fatigue, especially with a lot of physically demanding work. So how do you prevent burnout and fatigue with such a physically demanding kind of job and active service?
Well, I think um, it at times it can get a little hectic. I'll admit that, a little overwhelming. It can happen, feeling overcommitted.
Mm,
But I think that to avoid that, or to put that in perspective, is to begin the commitment, if you will, in prayer, and ask God if this is something that He wants you to get involved in. And I think that really kind of uh, then sets the tone of your heart for what you're going to get involved in. And, you know, you don't have to worry about God doubling down on you, so to speak, and saying, well, now that I've got you started, here's twice as much that needs to be done. You can just stay in prayer about it and address it that way. And I think that really keeps the anxiety factor from creeping in, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
So,
that's great advice because God knows how much we can handle,
mhm.
right? So he's not going to propel you into something that he doesn't know you're going to not be able to maintain
Right,
and take care of.
right,
So there's a lot of faith involved with that. That's something we talked about last week with Marcy and something we're hearing with David in his current sermon series. Yeah, being a faithful servant is sometimes just having faith, right? Not just like, oh, I'm making sure I'm serving all the time, but stepping into serving, trusting that God is placing you there for the right reasons.
right,
So that's
right.
really cool.
Yes.
So I think that kind of leads to my last question here is, one apprehension I think people might have is just how much time is involved. They don't want to be burnout. They don't want to have that fatigue because you're doing good work and you're doing serving. But on top of your work, on top of your family, activities, things going around in the home, there's that kind of margin that we have, especially just in a culture where we're just kind of busy all the time. What would be your encouragement and advice to people listening to this, thinking about wanting to take a step into serving, but not knowing if they really actually have that, energy and capacity to fulfill all the time that is needed?
Well, I think the encouragement I would offer is that for me, when I'm serving, when I'm out doing what I'm feeling called to do, it is the most um, rewarding and least anxiety part of my life, quite honestly. I I just it's hard to explain, but for me, it is not it's not something that I wish would go away or wish I could get through and never have to do again or anything like that. It for me, it fuels the fire in me, and I find a lot of enjoyment in doing it, and um, I think that carries over then into my business life and my personal life, my home life, because um, it actually has the reverse effect that you might think because I've enjoyed my time serving, and it changes my perspective on the rest of my life too. So
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you really do. Yeah, it's the joy of doing it, right? That really kind of does give you that extra energy, that extra motivation, and I think we probably all experience that in lots of different ways. That I know I can be really tired and ready to just go to bed, but like if I'm around my family and we're having a good time, supper, playing games with the kids, that adrenaline kind of kicks in because you're having so much joy doing it that the fatigue and tiredness goes away. I mean, it doesn't even matter anymore.
right,
So, wow, that's really awesome. So what would be? So you said about maybe 45 days out
right,
for
right.
this project with the transition house. What are some of the needs that are left, and how might people, say, "Yep, I'm ready to jump in and help get this project over the finish line," whether you have skills in construction or not?
Well, there's anytime you get down to the end of a project, there's a lot of little things, and I'll be honest, a lot of them only require patience, quite honestly, and a little bit of guidance. So there's obviously a lot of cleaning and touch up types of things. There's a lot of unpacking of appliances, for example, and setting of appliances that lots of times it's just get it out of the box, put it in the hole, and plug it
Plug it in,
in
right?
type of
Yeah.
thing. Lots of doorknobs to put on and uh, carrying flooring around if you aren't the one actually installing the flooring, just carrying it to the right spot in the home, and those kind of tasks um, that I think almost anybody with a little bit of patience can master.
Right. Yeah. So you can show up. not knowing anything about building or construction or flooring or finished work, there's a spot for you no
Right.
matter what. Yeah, that's
Right.
something we talked about last week too. And like short-term mission trips, it doesn't matter what you know or what you can do. God's going to use you in some way. So people can show up now. So, well, Rich, thanks so much for all of the talent that you have, that God's gifted you with, and how you're using that for the community work you're doing there with Wings of Refuge. It's not a small task. I mean, I struggle with just getting one room done in my house. So to imagine gutting an entire house and reshaping it from the ground up is just an incredible thing to do, and an incredible picture of what's going to happen in these women's lives when they, get out of that sex trafficking and, in the rescue home and then in a transition home. How, I mean, it's the best picture of the Christian mission, right? How God is going to reshape what was
Exactly.
broken into something new. So we really appreciate it, and we'll keep praying for that. And then keep up that hard work. It's
Thank you.
just awesome. So if you are interested in joining Rich and helping finish this last construction project, send us a message at serve@cceams.org. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Well, thanks for joining us for the Beyond the Sermon podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get notifications on our next episodes. Let us know if you have any questions related to today's topic. We want to engage you in conversations so we can enrich you in your daily walk. We'll catch you on the next episode.